had been in a relationship with Hubert for 6 years, yet right before the day we were supposed to register our marriage, I discovered that for the past 10 years he had been regularly ordering meals every single day for another woman through his food delivery app. That night, I immediately had my assistant secretly book a plane ticket for me to leave the next morning. And just like that, I quietly watched him continue his charade. By the time of our scheduled marriage registration, I had vanished. Hubert was frantic, searching for me like a madman. While he was in the shower, his phone rang incessantly. I picked it up. "Is this Mr. Hubert? Your food order has arrived." "Just leave it at the door," I replied politely before hanging up. I instinctively opened the food delivery app to see what Hubert had ordered. The order information showed an easily digestible porridge and a few light dishes. There was even a thoughtful note: "Porridge is better for the stomach. Remember to take care of yourself." My heart began to race. A premonition hit me, and my whole body started to tremble. I clicked on the order details to look closer and discovered the delivery address was in a city thousands of miles away. I forced myself to stay calm, scrolling through Hubert's entire order history, and found that he ordered 3 meals a day for someone else. I randomly opened a few orders and saw messages full of thoughtful concern and care. My heart involuntarily tightened. We had been together for 6 years, yet Hubert had never shown me that kind of attentiveness. The times I was busy with work and didn't eat properly, leading to acute stomach pain, Hubert would only glance at me indifferently, frowning and saying, "Drink some warm water." That was it. Yet, I used to feel happy and content with that minimal concern. Now, I sat on the bed, staring blankly as Hubert's phone screen went dark. When he stepped out of the bathroom, drops of water dripping from his wet hair, his eyes landed on the phone in my hand. "Amy, who gave you permission to look at my phone?" I avoided his gaze, instinctively probing. "You ordered food. Are you hungry?" Hubert quickly wiped the remaining water from his body, his tone impatient. "No, it was a mistake." Silence descended. He took the phone back and opened it. I didn't know what he saw, but he laughed out loud. I stared at him, closely watching every fleeting expression on his face. He was clearly happy, but my heart sank to the bottom of an abyss. After a moment, perhaps sensing my gaze, Hubert briefly panicked. Then, he acted nonchalantly. "Peter called me to play billiards. Do you want to come?" He had invited me before, but I always declined, citing work. This time, I looked at the computer screen for a long time, then smiled faintly. "Sure, but don't stay out too late. We have to register our marriage tomorrow." Hubert glanced at me, replying casually, "Yeah, I know. And so we walked into the underground parking garage one after the other, like strangers. I looked at his back, realizing for the first time that the intimacy I always imagined never truly existed. After being together for so long, we barely held hands. Every time I reached out to take his hand, I was met only with a look of distaste and his reason. "Your hands are sweaty and sticky. It grosses me out." Yet, ironically, his social media background photo was of 2 hands intertwined. I initially thought it was a stock photo, but now I wasn't so sure. Thinking this, I slowly curled my fingers, then deliberately reached my hand out again. Hubert paused. He turned back, looking down from above. "Amy, how many times have I told you? I don't like holding hands. The sticky feeling makes me sick." I just nodded slightly. The billiard hall wasn't far from home, less than a 10-minute drive. When Hubert pushed the door open and walked in, his friends called out with unusual excitement, "Hubert, look who's here! Your jaw will drop, guaranteed." I didn't know if Hubert's jaw dropped, but the jaws of his friends nearly did the moment I walked in. Standing at the door, my eyes cut through the crowd and met the gaze of a woman holding a billiard cue. I unconsciously pulled Hubert's arm, but he immediately shook my hand off. Then quickly rushed over to the woman. "Sister Patricia, you're back!" Patricia smiled and took Hubert's hand, displaying undisguised intimacy. So he wasn't averse to holding hands. He just didn't like holding my hand. Suddenly, Patricia glanced over at me, her look full of provocation. "Hubert, is this your girlfriend? Aren't you going to introduce her to me?" Hubert suddenly grew flustered. He looked at me, his lips, usually curled into a faint smile, pressed into a tight straight line. Then, like a guilty puppy, he gently shook his head. How could she be? "Sister Patricia, I told you, if you didn't come back, I wouldn't love anyone." I stood still, feeling the eyes from all directions focusing on me. They felt like sharp blades, piercing my skin and stabbing straight into my heart. Patricia offered a sweet smile, extending her hand towards me. "Hello, I'm Patricia, Hubert's elder sister who grew up with him." I looked at her hand, which closely resembled the hand in Hubert's background photo. A bitter taste immediately welled up in my nose, making me nearly unable to hold back my tears. Hubert urged, "Amy, what are you spacing out for?" I lifted my head, meeting Patricia's scrutinizing gaze. I reluctantly extended my hand, lightly shaking hers. "Hello, I'm Amy, I'm his." Before I could finish my sentence, Hubert interrupted. "She's just a casual friend. We ran into each other on the way and came together." I stood frozen in place, feeling the blood in my veins turn cold. We were clearly about to register our marriage, yet in his mouth, I was merely an insignificant acquaintance. Everyone looked relieved when I remained silent. Only I, his girlfriend, was forced to stand by like an outsider. Hubert had always been passive in our relationship. He wouldn't proactively show affection, but he wouldn't refute people when they complimented us as a couple. I naively thought it was because he had a reserved personality and disliked noise. But today, I understood. The real reason was that the person he cared about was far away, and he was only using a clown like me to pass the time here. Therefore, the moment Patricia returned, he was ready to erase my existence, without hesitation or consideration. I stood alone, tucked away in a corner, silently watching them enjoy themselves. Patricia glanced at me with interest, then slowly walked closer. With her chin slightly raised, she lightly shook the cue in her hand. "Hey, little sister, want to play a game of billiards with me? Let's make a wager." The challenge in her eyes was unconcealed. Without waiting for my response, she continued. "The stake? Let's bet on Hubert. We're going for drinks later. If you lose, Hubert belongs to me tonight." She acted as if she were certain I would lose. I felt a sharp ache in my heart. How could she use Hubert as a pawn to bet with? As if he were a toy. I turned to look at him, but his eyes were fixed only on Patricia. The corners of his lips curled into a bright smile. "Go for it, Sister Patricia. You'll win." I lowered my eyes and quietly picked up a billiard cue. One by one, I struck the balls, each shot precise. Watching Patricia's face grow increasingly sullen, my will to win intensified. My movements became increasingly decisive and sharp, until only one ball remained on the table. Just as I prepared to swing the cue, Hubert abruptly grabbed my arm. "Amy, why can't you let Sister Patricia win a little? Are you only satisfied when you ruin everyone's fun?" I looked straight into his blazing eyes. My chest hurt, but my voice was cold. "You want to go take care of her, don't you?" Hubert didn't answer. The air grew tense and suffocating. Patricia's expression kept shifting. Finally, she forced a smile and waved her hand. "It's my fault for not playing well, Hubert. Don't be tough on the little girl." Then she turned, smiling. "Let's go. We're going for a late-night meal. My treat." As soon as she spoke, everyone cheered happily. The group walked out of the billiard room. Patricia was still the center of attention, and I was left behind, a quiet shadow. From a distance, I saw Patricia settle into the passenger seat beside Hubert. The back seat was already full of his close friends. No one remembered me, and no one saved a spot for me. Just then, Patricia lowered the window and smiled apologetically at me. "There's no room left, Amy. Why don't you take a taxi? Let's connect on social media. I'll send you the address." I stared at the QR code on her phone, then slowly took out mine and added her. After they drove away, I finally managed to hail a taxi. Sitting in the back seat, my mind was a tangled mess. Bitterness and numbness crept into my heart. I knew that my relationship with Hubert was over, but to truly let go of 6 years of affection, I decided to follow them, to clearly witness the play between Hubert and Patricia. In the taxi, I pulled out my phone and called my assistant, Phoebe. "Book me a flight to New York City. I plan to expand the market there." Phoebe on the other end was surprised. "Amy, aren't you getting married tomorrow?" I forced a laugh. Keeping my tone light, I suddenly realized money is more important. Love? It's not very trustworthy. When I arrived at the restaurant address, they had already emptied over a dozen bottles of wine. The table in front of Patricia held the most bottles. Her face was flushed, and she leaned gently against Hubert, looking slightly drunk. Just then, her fair hand reached up, lightly pinching Hubert's cheek. She pouted, her voice sweet. "Hubert, it's been 10 years. You've grown up so much. Are you not doing well lately? Are you sad because I left?" Hubert's eyes were red, looking as if he were about to cry. I stood by the door, quietly watching the touching scene of the handsome man and beautiful woman for a moment. Then, without hesitation, I pushed the door open, shattering the emotional atmosphere. All eyes turned to me. Hubert frantically wiped his eyes. A tear still lingered on his lashes. Patricia was genuinely drunk. She clung tightly to Hubert's arm, tears streaming down. "I feel unwell. Can you take me home, Hubert? I regret it." I still wanted to hear what she regretted, but Hubert had already lifted Patricia, striding past me. I clenched my hands into fists, my throat tight. I struggled to call out his name. "Hubert, if you leave, we are over." The moment I spoke, he froze. His voice was filled with barely suppressed anger. "Amy, you've been targeting Sister Patricia all evening. Are you so free? Don't make a scene in public. I've been patient with you long enough." With that, Hubert carried Patricia and walked away, not looking back. I stood rooted to the spot, watching their figures disappear. Finally, I couldn't hold back the tears, and they poured down like a stream. Everyone saw me crying and rushed to comfort me. "Amy, don't cry, they're just friends." Friends? But in Hubert's mouth, I was just a friend too. I clumsily wiped my tears. The affection was completely gone now. I mocked myself with a bitter laugh, right? He has many friends. Then let him take care of his friends as he pleases. With that, I hurried out, practically running away. I stumbled back to the house that had once been Hubert's and my home. Looking at the familiar space, every piece of furniture twisted my heart. I curled up on the bed, hugging a pillow. My eyes were wide open, and I cried silently through the entire night. By 7 a.m. the next morning, the piercing alarm clock rang, accompanied by the note, "Register marriage today." I blinked my eyes, which were dry and stinging from crying. Only then did I react. Yes? Today was supposed to be the day Hubert and I registered our marriage, but what he did yesterday had completely killed my heart. One day of suffering was enough. Since I had decided to leave, I couldn't hesitate any longer. After steadying myself, I took out my phone, intending to send Hubert a breakup message. But the moment I unlocked the screen, my eyes caught a new status update from Patricia. Looking at this familiar sleeping face, I feel truly at peace. 10 years. I really miss days like this. Attached was a photo. The sleeping face in the picture was Hubert's, his lips curved into a gentle smile, as if he were having a beautiful dream. I lowered my eyes without a word, immediately unfriending Patricia. Then, I called Hubert. His voice was still heavy with sleep, hoarse and irritable. "I know today is the registration day. Stop calling to rush me, all right? Am I going to run away from the marriage? Sister Patricia is still unwell. It's not too late for me to go after she's stable. Stop calling!" Before I could say anything, he hung up. I bit my lip, expressionlessly opening the chat box and sending the final message. "Hubert, we're breaking up." Then, I silently blocked and deleted all contact with him, and turned off my phone. By the time I landed in New York City, the pain and suffocation of the long sleepless night seemed to have passed. The moment I collapsed onto the hotel bed, I had a clear feeling I was truly about to start a new life. It was unfamiliar, but it didn't scare or repel me. After a short rest, I turned on my phone, intending to call my assistant, Phoebe. As soon as the screen lit up, I saw a string of missed calls from my assistant and unfamiliar numbers. I immediately called Phoebe. "Phoebe, I arrived. My phone was almost dead this morning, so I turned it off. Did I worry you?" Phoebe laughed. "Amy, I figured you left in a hurry to run away from someone. Hubert called my workplace this morning, too." I pursed my lips and said softly, "He and I broke up." Phoebe didn't ask anything further, only gently wishing me success in the new city. After hanging up, the next call came from a mutual friend of Hubert and me. "Oh my God, you finally answered. What the hell is going on with Hubert?" All the friends, relatives, and family gathered at the marriage registry and waited, but the bride and groom were nowhere to be seen. "What is happening?" "We called Hubert, and he wouldn't answer. We thought you two disappeared together." I gripped the phone tightly, silently for a few seconds, then said hoarsely, "It's not that two people disappeared. We're not getting married anymore. We broke up." The other end fell silent. I didn't wait for the person to speak, continuing, "I have things to do. Talk later." With that, I hung up. The bitterness in my heart surged again like a powerful wave. 6 years of affection couldn't be erased overnight. Suppressing my emotions, I tossed the phone aside, intending to rest and prepare for tomorrow's work. However, fate seemed determined not to leave me in peace. Just as I dozed off, the phone rang frantically, shattering my peaceful sleep. I glanced at the screen. It was an unfamiliar number. Thinking it was a work call, I quickly answered, clearing my throat and maintaining a professional tone. "Hello, I'm Amy." Before I could finish, Hubert's angry roar came through. "Amy, what game are you playing? No one in the family can find you, not even the company. Who are you putting on this disappearing act for? I already told you, Sister Patricia drank too much yesterday and isn't feeling well. What are you being so unreasonable about? Have I spoiled you too much? Roger just called and said you didn't even show up at the registry. Where are you? I'm giving you 2 hours to appear in front of me, or this marriage is off." I frowned, then gave a mocking laugh. "Hubert, didn't you read the message I sent you? We broke up. I wouldn't marry you. If you want a wife, go find your sister Patricia. And don't call me again. You're annoying." Without letting him say anything more, I decisively hung up and immediately blocked the number. I sat on the bed, no longer sleepy. Clearly, neither of us went to the registry, yet Hubert still blamed everything on me. Thinking back, for 6 years, I had accommodated him in almost everything. Over time, I had unconsciously created a habit in him of thinking he was always right, the most rational person in the world. I sighed, opened the food delivery app and ordered a portion of fried chicken and a can of Coke. While waiting for the delivery, I opened my photo gallery. I looked at each photo, reliving each moment, then deleted them one by one, as if only by doing so could I completely erase the memory of a love that had once been engraved in my heart. When the delivery arrived, I opened the door and noticed a small slip of paper. Taped to the bag, "Eat high-calorie food and happiness will double." It was clearly a generic sticker from the store, yet it felt like a bitter irony to me. I peeled it off, crumpled it, and threw it straight into the trash. Each piece of hot fried chicken, each sip of cold Coke, I ate with pleasure. Because Hubert was a gym enthusiast, ever since I met him, I had become strict with myself about staying in shape. Foods like this, high in calories, had almost never appeared in the house. Back then, if I even held a can of Coke, he would stare at me as if I were committing a sin, to the point where I had to quietly throw it away. But today, eating a few bites of chicken and drinking a few sips of Coke, the bitter taste in my heart seemed to ease slightly. After eating, I opened the video app, scrolling through clips. I even laughed a few times at the funny ones. My mood was incredibly relaxed, but the joy didn't last long. TikTok suddenly recommended a video of an account you may know. The video showed a couple strolling down the street, hands touching, the atmosphere intimate. With just a glance, I immediately recognized them. They were Patricia and Hubert. My eyes instantly burned. I looked up, vigorously waving my hand to force the tears back. Taking a deep breath, I pressed like on the video, then casually blocked the account. I tossed the phone aside, exhausted, and drifted off to sleep. In my restless sleep, Hubert's face appeared repeatedly, sometimes next to me, sometimes with Patricia. I knew I was dreaming, but I couldn't wake up until the alarm clock rang, pulling me out of the nightmare. I opened my eyes. The morning sun shone on my face, strangely warm and comfortable. Yet, the moment I picked up my phone, I received the first piece of bad news. A message from Phoebe, Amy. Hubert stood outside your apartment all last night. I had no choice but to give him your address. I felt a slight annoyance, but ultimately just replied, "It's fine." I ignored it and got out of bed to prepare for work. In this new branch, everything was a tangled mess. Many issues required my personal attention. Social events and meetings were nonstop. But thanks to the busyness, I didn't have much time to think about Hubert anymore. He seemed to have completely disappeared. Even though he had my address, he never showed up. I started thinking that I could finally let go completely. Just as I was about to breathe a sigh of relief, however, food orders from an unknown sender started appearing outside my rental apartment door. At first, I thought someone had ordered the wrong address and asked in the resident group, but no one claimed them. Until I realized that 3 meals a day, a delivery person brought food to my door. The ordering style, the notes, and even the dishes all bore Hubert's signature. I had no choice but to unblock his number and call. When he answered, I suppressed my anger, my voice cold. "Hubert, what exactly do you want?" The other end was silent for a long time. Finally, his gentle voice spoke. "Amy, I just remembered your stomach isn't good. I wanted to remind you to eat 3 proper meals." Hearing him, I was truly speechless. I had acute stomach pain countless times before, writhing in cold sweat, yet he had never proactively ordered food for me like this. Now he was worried about me? How ridiculous. I said coldly, "How my stomach is none of your business, Hubert. We broke up. Worry about your sister Patricia. I don't need it, and I find it disgusting." But that sentence seemed to cross his breaking point. His voice suddenly rose, filled with suppressed rage. "Patricia knows how to cook. Her stomach is none of my concern. You are my fiancé. I never agreed to break up." Amy, your words really hurt me. I thought I was out of tears, that after all that, I wouldn't hurt over him anymore. Yet, hearing that, my eyes still stung, and tears silently fell. "You only remember I'm your fiancé now? You only realize people have hearts and feelings now, Hubert? You were the one who said I was just a casual friend that day. From that moment, you crushed my heart. We broke up. Stop ordering food for me, and stop causing chaos in front of me." With that, I decisively hung up, kicked the box of food aside, and walked into the house. But I hadn't rested long before a frantic knocking started at the door. "Amy, I don't agree to break up." I squeezed my eyes shut, gritted my teeth, then put on headphones to block out the noise. The world instantly returned to quiet. Finally, I could focus on work. However, the phone rang again. I was incredibly annoyed by the continuous sound. Finally, I picked up, my voice unconsciously irritable. "It's late at night. Is this something serious that requires a call?" The person on the other end was a male voice, sounding very polite. "Hello, Miss Amy. We are the building management. A resident in the area complained that your apartment is causing excessive noise and disturbing others." After hanging up, I ground my teeth, angrily shuffling to the door. The hallway was quiet, save for a building manager standing there, next to Hubert, who stood with his head bowed, looking guilty. After the manager explained, he added, "No more noise," and left. I clenched my fists, trying to stay calm. To avoid disturbing the neighborhood, I was forced to let Hubert inside to talk. "What exactly do you want, Hubert?" Why do you keep disrupting my life over and over again? Hubert's eyes were red. He bowed his head, attempting to reach out and take my hand. He was very good at feigning distress. Before, whenever he put on this look, I would immediately soften, hug him, and forgive all his faults without hesitation. But now, my heart seemed to have hardened. There wasn't a ripple of emotion. Seeing my cold indifference, Hubert froze. He clearly hadn't expected me to be so distant. He faintly moved his lips, saying resentfully, "I'm just worried about you." I gave a cold laugh. Hubert, worried about me? How are you worried? By ordering food every day for the person you worry about. You ordered food for Patricia for 10 years and were rewarded with her returning to your side. So, are you planning to order food for me for another 10 years now? Hubert's face instantly stiffened. Then, anger showed clearly. His expression twisted. You looked at my phone? You searched all the way to the food delivery app? Do you know that's a sign of mistrust? He started to get agitated, but after only a moment, he quickly lowered his voice to explain, "No, I didn't mean that. I curled my lips into a cynical smile. Hubert, do you deserve my trust? You can interpret it however you like, I don't care. But the undeniable truth is there. You secretly ordered food for another woman for 10 years. In front of everyone, you called me a casual friend. And then you completely ignored me to leave with Patricia and stayed out all night. Now, you've achieved what you wanted. Why are you still clinging to me?" He hurriedly took 2 steps forward, rushing to explain. "It's not what you think. Patricia is just a very important sister to me. I did like her once, but that was when we were kids. It wasn't until you said we were breaking up that I realized how much I love you. That day, I called you a casual friend because I didn't want her to pay too much attention to you. Patricia has a somewhat extreme personality. I was afraid she would hurt you. And ordering food for her? It was just because I was worried she wouldn't eat properly living alone. Amy, I have truly cut ties with her completely. Trust me, from now on, I will only love you. Whether it's Patricia, Anna, or anyone else, I won't get involved with them." His justifications irritated me. Not bothering to hear another word, I opened the door and forcefully pushed him out. "Hubert, how much longer are you going to keep making excuses? Whether you cut ties with anyone is none of my business as an ex-girlfriend. I've already told you, you are not worthy of my trust. If you still aren't clear about our relationship, then I'll say it one last time. We have broken up, and there is absolutely no chance of me coming back." Hubert ground his teeth, forcing out each word. "Please don't, Amy, I won't see Patricia again. I'm begging you. Give me one chance to make things right." I looked straight into his eyes, completely unmoved. "I gave you countless chances that night." With that, I closed the door without remorse. Chances? How many times had I given him chances? From the moment I found out what he was doing behind my back, I silently followed him to the billiard hall. That was one chance. On the way, I reached out to hold his hand. That was a chance. Even when he abandoned me at the table, I still decided to give him another chance. But forgiveness cannot be endless. That night, there were countless times I gave him opportunities, and he didn't cherish any of them. Now it was too late to beg me. There was no more noise outside the door. I returned to my room, finished the remaining work, and went to bed. The next morning, I got ready for work. I opened the door, and a cheerful face greeted me. "Amy, good morning." Hubert rarely had such a radiant smile. I frowned, closed the door, and opened it again to confirm I wasn't dreaming. Then I took a step back, asking with disgust, "What's wrong with you?" Hubert dangled his car keys in front of me. I thought all night, and finally realized that the person I've loved all along is you. Patricia was just a childhood obsession. So, I decided, I'm going to win you back. I couldn't fathom what he was thinking. His belated love now felt utterly superfluous and extremely annoying. I coldly walked past him. "Hubert, what are you performing now? 6 years together wasn't enough for you to love me, and now that I've left, you suddenly realize it? I'm sorry, I never go back to exes. All I want is for you to disappear from my life. Don't ever show up again." Hubert smiled faintly, his eyes filled with maniacal determination. "Whatever you say is useless. I will be with you from today on. I will be by your side every day." With that, he grabbed my wrist, pulled me to the car, and pressed me into the passenger seat. "I'm driving you to work." I looked at the clock. If I argued with Hubert now, I would definitely be late for work. So I buckled my seatbelt and commanded coldly, "Drive." On the way, he was unusually cheerful, driving and humming a song, as if my sitting in his car meant my entire future was tied to his life. I played games on my phone filled with cynicism. In the past, when we were together for 6 years, Hubert never once proactively drove me to work. Only when it was storming, and I begged him 3 or 4 times would he bestow the favor of picking me up, but always with a complaint that I was troublesome and overdramatic. Now, he was acting like a gentle, thoughtful boyfriend. I gave a cold laugh, not exposing him, and pretended to comply, agreeing to let him pick me up after work. But when it was time to leave, I quietly slipped out the back entrance of the company and hailed a taxi home. The weather was bad, the rain started pouring down just as I stepped inside. Hubert was probably still waiting for me outside the company gate. 6 years of feelings, 2 months couldn't completely erase the connection. Looking at the pouring rain, I did feel a little worried, but he didn't call me and I no longer had a reason to call him. That night, I sat by the window, silently watching the raindrops patter against the glass. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't focus on work. Finally, I sighed, pulled out my phone and called him. The phone was answered quickly, but it wasn't Hubert's voice. It was Patricia. "Amy, Hubert is in the shower. Is something wrong?" My fingers stiffened as if electrocuted. I felt utterly foolish. I already knew Hubert's true colors, yet I was soft-hearted enough to worry about him. I fumbled to hang up, buried my head under the blanket, and silently hated myself. I thought he would be sensible and disappear, but no. The next day after work, he was waiting outside the company gate again, playing the role of the devoted boyfriend once more. But this time, I wasn't soft-hearted. I coldly walked past Hubert and quietly returned home. Unexpectedly, he was truly persistent. He even rented the apartment next door to mine. Every morning, he would knock on the door and leave breakfast there. At first, I was furious, pounding on his door and yelling at him to stop wasting his time. But gradually, I stopped getting angry. I would just quietly place the food back outside his door. When my emotions stabilized, my life seemed to return to its usual peace. But peace is often suddenly shattered. That night, I was walking home as usual after work. On the quiet road, dimly lit by streetlights, someone suddenly rushed from behind, covered my mouth, and dragged me away. The panic that surged was cut short before it could erupt. I completely passed out. When I woke up, I found myself tied up in a dilapidated factory building. There was no one around. I cried out for help, but the only response was a cold echo. My clothes were still intact, and my phone was still in my pocket. It seemed my kidnapper had no clear motive, only wanting to lock me up here. It was completely dark now. In the old factory, the darkness seemed to swallow everything. The cries of stray cats intensified the fear in me. I knew I could only rely on myself now. Forcing myself to stay lucid, I gritted my teeth and tried to tip my body backward. Fortunately, I was wearing wide-leg pants today. If the phone in my pocket could just slide out, I could use my face to call for help. I inhaled shakily, trying to wriggle my body. Finally, after many attempts, the phone flew out, landing not far from me. I dragged myself over, used my chin to touch the screen, and shakily dialed the emergency contact, Hubert. For the first time since we broke up, I genuinely hoped he would answer. "Amy?" His familiar voice rang out. I burst into tears, unable to control myself. "Hubert, I'm scared. Can you come?" Before I could finish, Patricia's moan came from the other end. "It hurts, Hubert. Be gentler." His voice sounded panicked. "Amy, I have something going on. Wait a bit, and I'll call you back." Click. The line went dead. I froze. It felt as if, in the darkness, hundreds of ghostly hands were reaching out to drag me into the abyss. I used my last bit of willpower to call for help again, this time dialing 911. Then, I didn't know anything else. I collapsed from sheer exhaustion. When I opened my eyes again, I was in a hospital. Hubert sat beside the bed, tightly holding my hand, trembling uncontrollably. Doctors and police officers were also waiting nearby. I opened my eyes, taking a few seconds to regain consciousness. Then, I used all my strength to pull my hand away from his. Hubert's face was pale. His voice choked. "You're awake. I'm sorry. I didn't know." But I ignored him and turned to the police. "Have you caught the person?" Perhaps because of the terrifying night, my throat was raw as if cut by a knife. Hearing my question, the police nodded. "They've been caught, but we need your cooperation for a statement." I nodded in agreement. Hubert immediately offered me a cup of water. I took it, drank a few sips, and slowly recounted everything, from being kidnapped to the self-rescue process. Hubert sat beside me, weeping as he listened. It wasn't until I finished my statement and the police provided their report that I understood the whole truth. The kidnapper was a gambler deep in debt. Someone had paid him a large sum simply to lock me in that abandoned factory. He wasn't to physically harm or violate me, but merely to torment my spirit for a few days. I took a deep breath and quietly asked, "Who hired him?" The police's answer was soft, but it hit me like a bolt of lightning. "Patricia." I nodded slightly, not entirely surprised. Only Hubert couldn't handle the truth. He suddenly stood up, gripping my hand tightly. "I'm sorry, Amy. I'm sorry. I didn't know she would be so extreme. If I had known she would do this, I absolutely wouldn't have gone back to help her. She said she had an accident, said she was dying. I left you to rush to her side. It was all her doing." Hubert spoke almost hysterically. Every word was disjointed, frantic, and drenched in belated remorse. I looked into his red eyes and merely curled my lips into a cold smile. Hubert, we had broken up, yet I still fell into disaster because of you. Who you love, or who you left me for, I don't care anymore. I just hope you never appear in front of me again. All you bring is anxiety and trouble. I truly don't want to see you again. Hubert quickly shook his head, begging tearfully, please, give me one more chance. Will you trust me one more time? But I had already been soft-hearted once. Once, when I thought he might be in danger because of me, and once again when I prayed he would come to rescue me. But both times he chose Patricia. Hubert tried to hug me, but I angrily pushed his hand away. I looked straight at him, as if looking at a stranger. Hubert, get out! Get out of my sight! Don't make me hate you! He froze, raising his hand as if to hold on to something, but finally seemed to realize I would never forgive him. He quietly turned and stiffly left the hospital room. I closed my eyes, truly letting go of the shadow of Hubert in my heart for the first time. After I was discharged from the hospital, he never appeared again. However, he still secretly ordered food to be delivered outside my apartment. Every day, sometimes cooking it himself, sometimes ordering delivery, but I never ate any of it. I didn't even look at it before throwing it away. Before the court hearing, I visited Patricia one last time. She had lost a lot of weight, her face haggard. When she saw me, she looked at me with deep hatred. I should have let him kill you then. I truly didn't understand. Why did she hate me so much? It was clearly Hubert who was the despicable, two-timing man. The one who should be blamed was Hubert, not me. I looked straight at her and asked, why do you hate me? Shouldn't you hate Hubert? Patricia suddenly burst into maniacal laughter. He loved me for 10 years. I waited for 10 years before I dared to return to his side. And now he says he loves you. Amy, by what right? You stole the man I loved. You destroyed my dream. I should have let him kill you. I stood up, looking at her with cold eyes. A fickle, selfish man who only recognized love when he couldn't have it, and a woman who was blind, driven by insane obsession. And I was just the unfortunate one dragged into their sick spiral. I knew anything I said now wouldn't change Patricia's warped views, so I decisively walked out of the detention center. When the bright sunlight hit my shoulder, a feeling of lightness and freedom filled my chest. Just as I was inhaling the fresh air, a figure rushed toward me. It was the police officer who had rescued me from the factory. He smiled, his eyebrows curved, his eyes clear. Amy, hello. I faintly curved my lips, smiling back, and proactively offered my hand to shake his. A new chapter of my life would surely begin here, setting sail once more.